So, props. Gym. And I'm here to kind of explain what each one is and show you some poses with all three and how you can implement them into your practice without feeling totally overwhelmed. Because I know the feeling when you walk into a studio and it's like, it's new, it's a new experience, and then you see some of these things and you're like, okay, that's the last thing I'm gonna touch because I have no idea what to do with it. This, my friend, is called a yoga block or a yoga brick. Lots of different names for it. Those are the two most common. This is a stabilizer. It is meant to help stabilize you and make you more aligned in your yoga practice. And we're gonna get there with this. People don't want to use one because they think they don't need support. They think they're strong enough. They don't need it. I've heard it so many times. I literally have given yoga blocks to every single person in my class. And there's always one person who's like, I don't need one. Okay, cool. Why? They're amazing. I do not practice without one of these. That is my truth. Next is the strap. This strap is from my friends at Slow Flow. It loops on both ends, this particular one. Sometimes you'll come across one that does not loop. It has the buckle on it where you'd have to loop it yourself and make one large circle. This one has two loops because I also use this one to carry my yoga mat around. So obviously you're not gonna get much out of a strap that is shortened. So maybe get one that is nice and long. This one can do both, so I really like this one. And it's cool because the loop part of it can actually go around the foot, so you can have more security with the foot. If you're ever wondering, why the heck does my strap have loops and what the heck do I do with this thing? Yeah, well, I'll show you a few poses that you can do with this too. Lastly is a bolster. This is another one from my friends at Slow Flow. This one's a smaller one. They come in all different shapes and sizes. There's circular bolsters, square bolsters. This one is obviously nice and long. This one is also very thin. I don't need a bigger one for me personally, but if you've ever gone into a restorative yoga class or a yin style class, they'll be thicker and like much bigger. But this one's pretty good for what I need it for. Let's get into it. I'll show you guys a few poses where you can use these props. Foremost, I want to go into the block. The block is the most common prop. You're going to see this block everywhere. Anytime you go into a gym or any type of yoga, Pilates studio, you're going to see one of these. Essentially, I like to use a block to bring the floor closer to me. So anytime that you're in a forward fold, like something like this, if the teacher calls, okay, come into ragdoll pose, you'll come forward like this. If you can't fold forward as deeply as me or the person next to you, you can always bend the knees, okay? But using that block is definitely gonna help you. I sometimes even use two blocks, right? I'll have one here and one here. Especially in prenatal yoga, you can have two. One is always more than enough as well. Obviously, in a forward fold like this, your practice is a little bit easier on the low back. Coming down into your high plank position, you can take the block ahead of you or from the side. Coming down to the high plank position, you can actually use your block in front of you, just underneath your chest, to practice lowering down on one knee or no knees, lowering down into your low plank position, okay? And then helping you come right up into that up dog. So I'll do that again from your high plank position. You can use that block to come nice and low, practicing that hovering, keeping the core nice and strong, okay? And then from there, hopping up into your up dog. And then from here, you can take the block actually onto your inner thighs, squeeze it, and sink nice and low into your down dog. Yeah, and I like to use a block between the thighs here to get strong in your lower body, because you take the weight out of your hands, especially if people come to my class and they're like, oh, I have really weak wrists or sore wrists. I feel too much when I come into this pose in my upper body. Use that block to take energy away from the upper body and get stronger in those legs. and of course the core muscles. Because the second you start to use the block to squeeze and activate your inner thighs, you'll feel that in your pelvic floor, you'll feel that in your core, and it'll just help with the pose all around. That's one really, really good one. Another, if you're coming into Warrior One, you can use the block for your hands. I like to take a practice where you take the block between both palms and you lift the block over your head. Lift it as high as you can. Send your elbows next to your ears. Send the elbows back and down. So you're actually sliding your shoulders down the back, okay? You can practice a little bit of arm strength there. And of course, another really, really great one is when you're in your Warrior Two position, coming down to extended side angle, using a block to, again, bring the floor closer to you. This for me is all about alignment. So if I was not using the block, and let's say I was really tight in my hips or I had poor posture, right, my shoulders are rounded very close in towards me, okay, I would come down into this pose, imagine, okay, I'm using my forearm to my thigh, okay, this shoulder stays pretty low, even if the teacher says, oh, hey, take your top hand to the sky. Okay, this is where I'm at. Fine, good place to start. Now, if the teacher says, hey, take that take that bottom hand to the mat. You're like, oh my God, I don't know if I want to go down there, but you try. Okay, now I'm taking my whole body forward, kind of feeling like awkward. Maybe it feels fine for you because you have no idea, but then you're losing the strength in the front knee because you're not going to engage the inner thighs anymore. And then all of this focus is now coming forward, just hoping to God you don't fall out of this pose. Believe me, I get it. It's not a good feeling to be like in something that feels so awkward and then you're not even breathing. And then you're not even thinking properly because you're like, just kind of like, oh my God, I don't even look like anybody else. This is where the block comes in. Come out of the pose, grab your block, okay? Take it on the highest setting, place it in front of you. And now, even if, let's say, okay, I've got bad knees and my shoulders are forward and I'm coming down to the block, wow, okay. Now I can still keep the integration in my front knee, okay? I'm still feeling pretty good there, right? Press into the feet. And now when the teacher says, oh, bring your top hand to the sky, I can, and I have a little bit more lift that I can actually turn my heart to the sky and enjoy it up here. Like, wow, okay, cool. Like, I'm not now like down here, I actually can lift up and think about some of the other elements of the pose. Opening up the heart, right? Breathing. Lifting up through that shoulder girdle, lifting the fingers up towards the sky, maybe even sending that knee forward more, okay? Oh, so much going on here when you have a little more support. Good? Okay, that is essentially how the block can be implemented into class. That's it. There's a million other ways. Oh, I'll show you one more and then we'll go into the bolster. So you can lie down. And if ever you hear teachers say, bridge pose, okay, bridge. Take your block underneath your low back. Take a restorative bridge. This just feels really nice. I used to do this every single day when I was pregnant with my kids. It was just a nice way to like decompress the low back and get off the back as well. I'm gonna take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Now, this is a good introduction for the bolster. Yay, bolster. So I'm gonna come up, I'm gonna grab my bolster because the bolster can do the exact same thing, supporting that low back in a restorative bridge. Okay, you've got a nice restorative practice here. Got my bolster, feeling a little cozy. This is a really good option too. So you don't need something as solid as a block. You can use something a little bit more cushioned. Now, with that said, the bolster can also come into a variety of poses for a restorative class. I like to use my bolster, especially if I've got a nice big wide one that's as wide as my mat. You can use it in a child's pose. You can hug the bolster in towards you. We do this a lot in prenatal yoga, taking one ear, then the other side. I've seen people even take Savasana with their bolsters like this, using it between the knees, right? If you had a nice long one, you could use it here. This is where in restorative yoga, you could actually take a block underneath your head and keep your spine in line, or vice versa. You can reverse them. Another one with the bolster that I really like is when you're in your pigeon pose, you take that front knee out in front of you. I like using cushion underneath pigeon, okay? You're gonna put that under there more gracefully than me, but you can put your bolster right underneath your hip, feel a little bit more cushion in those hips. And coming forward, you can use that extra block for underneath your forehead for a more restorative experience. So essentially your bolster is always going to add in a little bit more comfort because it's a pillow, it's a giant pillow, and you want it to support you in a more comfortable, cozy way. And it's meant to not be as rigorous and quick. With a block, especially if you're moving in a vinyasa or power yoga flow, this is quick, right? It's a quick transition. You got a quick block with you. They make them even smaller now, but this is a little bit more sensual. You need time to move it around and make sure that you feel comfortable with it. Another great one is fish pose before I move on to the strap. In fish pose, if you had a nice chunkier bolster, even a large firm pillow, you place a block just there behind you, and you can set up your bolster literally like a little chair and use your bolster to set up for a fish pose, restorative fish. And if you're in a nice restorative class with candles and your teacher's coming around with blankets and an eye pillow, and you're just like, holy moly, she might set you up, depending on the size of the class, she might set you up with like 5 bolsters. Put bolsters everywhere. Put one underneath your knee, underneath your legs, your arms, right? So this is all about a cozy class. If you walk into a class and there's a bunch of bolsters on the floor, you're in for a treat. Moving on, strap. Woo! I love a good strap. Okay, so first and foremost, your strap for balancing poses, okay, is perfecto, especially if we come into a standing leg raise, okay, something like that. Teacher asks you, standing leg raise. Take your leg out to the side, right? You can do that pretty easily without compromising your hips, right? Because if I were to do that, let's say I wasn't very flexible and I had no idea what I was doing, that's fair. Bring your knee up, okay, for standing leg raise. Teacher says, okay, option for your knee to stay bent or kick out your foot. Sure, if I had the strength, I could easily open up the foot, no problem. Okay, I could grab my big toe, kick it out, open up. But normally what happens in the human body, this hip's gonna jut out. Okay, I'm gonna wanna go like that because I want to even things out. I wanna balance it. Not okay. This is putting so much stress, I don't like the way that feels at all. But with a strap, okay, when you start and you don't have that core strength and you don't have that mindfulness to keep everything in line, right? A strap is perfect because you can get into it and be mindful of that hip. I actually can control it now and keep my hips pretty square. Sweet. Next, forward folds. If a teacher ever asks, go into a bind, you can take the strap behind you. Okay, roll the shoulders open, get really comfortable in that arm, then send yourself forward into a shoulder stretch there. This feels so good. Oh, it feels so good. Opening up the feet nice and wide, wide-legged, forward fold, taking the strap over. Oh my God, that feels so good. Whew. Whereas the alternative is to take your hands at the low back and send yourself over, which sometimes is not comfortable. I know a lot of people with poor posture, men especially, if you're working a lot of your weights, big tight biceps, right? They don't want to catch their hands and go like that. It doesn't feel good. They get stuck. Okay, the alternative is to catch your forearms. Okay, you can do that. But again, sometimes that restricts the movement. Here, there's no restricting the movement. You have a nice clean strap, keeping your hands open nice and wide. So there's a huge range of motion. You have that openness that you can go for it. Okay, last thing with the strap, before we're complete, strap can connect to the feet, bringing the feet closer to you when you do any forward folds on the floor. Okay, so if I'm working on my flexibility, a strap is fantastic, obviously, to keep an active back while you're doing those stretches. Yeah, there's like 100 different ways to use a strap, block, or bolster. Those are just some of my favorite ways. I hope that this was beneficial for you. If you guys have any questions, comments, please let me know. If you want to see anything specific, let me know. I'm more than happy to share. Okay, I'm trying to think, is there anything else that I really missed that I want to share? Oh, my favorite. Okay, I'll end here. Happy baby. So lying on the back, you can take a strap to both feet. There. I know a lot of people don't do this because they can't reach their feet or they feel awkward. But this is a really great way to dig that with a strap. And of course then thread the needle, which you could do your thread the needle like that. Yeah, cool. Woo! All right guys, that's it. Have a great day.